Hey everyone, Jen Appleberry here with Appleberry's Attic. We are so excited today to do this tutorial on how to drop a stencil, okay? Now a stencil is really something that you either have gotten in person with us at our craft studio, or maybe you're just watching this tutorial because you have printed something out on your Cricut, right? So a stencil is just a really great way to put wording or a design onto a piece of lumber. So today I've already got a pre-cut stencil. This is something that we did. I've got a team that designs these and we cut them. But again, if you're doing this with your Cricut, same concept will apply. Okay, so what we're going to do to start off is, first of all, we've got our piece of lumber. So this is the sign, the main part of the sign. And you can see that I've just painted my board white. Now, whenever I'm doing a sign, after I've got my board dry, like really, really dry. So that's the key, guys. If you're having a problem with your stencil sticking, it's because your board was wet, cold, or cool to the touch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and make sure this board is nice and dry, which it is. And then now we're gonna add some sanding. So I always like to do my sanding before my stenciling because you don't want to do a ton of sanding after you've done your stencil. It could smear that paint, okay? So we're going to go ahead and work on doing a little bit of sanding. Mainly I like to do those edges. I feel like by sanding the edge of your sign, whether it has a frame or no frame, it adds a lived-in look and a little bit of a framing that really brings it all together. All right, so I'm just finishing up edge number 3 and moving to edge number 4. I bet that's a real fun noise on camera. Crafting is all about creativity and a little bit of noise. All right, friends, so I've got my board painted. It is dry, and now my edges are sanded. If you were doing a darker color other than white, you could sand over the surface of this board and give it a nice lived-in rustic look as well. Definitely on trend with the farmhouse decor that we have going on in the world. So now I'm going to bring in my stencil. I always like to tell people in our studio here, so we've got a craft studio in downtown Anoka, Minnesota, and we do tons of walk-in workshops and things where people love these projects. And if you've got your project home with us today, this is where this tutorial comes in. But I always tell people, when you're thinking about a stencil, think about it like a sticker. If we think about a sticker in our brain, then it makes a little bit more sense as we're getting ready to drop this onto our board. So if I need to get a sticker to stick, what would I take off first? Well, we would take off the backing. So I'm going to go ahead and flip my stencil over. I'm going to start in one of the top corners, and I'm going to start peeling the backing towards me. I always feel like if I'm peeling away from me, I don't have as good of control. And secondly, I'm gonna do it laying down versus instead of like up in the air like this, because then you really could start to pull that piece off, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and start by taking the top corner, creasing the backing, and then moving towards you and peeling it off. Now, what you're going to see is if any part of the stencil, specifically the middles of letters, so like the E's, the O's, the A's, if those start to come up with the backing, lay the backing down, give it a little zhuzh, and then keep moving, getting all of that sticker to stay down and the backing off. Look at that, glorious. Now I'm gonna keep the back of my stencil because this to me is also gonna be used as a placemat for my painting. But now I'm going to go ahead and take my stencil and flip it over. Make sure you don't do this and stick it together because that, well, would cause some sweating and swearing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our stencil and we're going to lay it down onto our board. Now, if you got your stencil from Appleberry's Attic and this is a project that you're putting together at home, the good news is that our team cuts our stencils within about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch. So I always tell people, as long as you match the shape of the stencil with the shape of your board, you're most likely not going to get it too terribly crooked, okay? So I'm going to line up my stencil. Notice how I have not placed it down, like really pressed down on it. Because of that, I still have movement to lift it and pick it up. So I'm gonna just make sure that I've got the same amount of lip and overhang on both sides. Okay, see how I just keep kind of lifting it up and making sure it's nice and straight. Okay, same as here, same as here. All right, friends, that looks pretty darn good. So now I feel that my stencil's in the appropriate place. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my hand in the middle, swish out all of the air, and stick this girl down, okay? You can go ahead and use your hand like this. You can take a tool. There are vinyl tools that look like a credit card, or the good old-fashioned way is to just go ahead and take something like this and just run it over the surface of the board to make sure that it's nice and stuck down. Now that we've got this step done, we're gonna go ahead and do the exact same step that we just did by taking off the backing. Now we're gonna do it with the front, okay? So the front of the sticker is that heathered looking tape that you can see through, and that tape is there to keep all of those middles together, like the middles of the E's, the O's, the A's that I talked about. That's what we're doing by taking this off, is we're keeping those stickers down and making sure that they work in our direction. Same thing, I'm pulling from that top corner, and I always tell people my secret word here that I think of is to go low and slow. That means low, crease that sticker or that backing or top, and slow because you want to make sure to kind of wiggle it and shimmy this off so that no pieces come with you. Again, same concept applies. If at any part in the day you get a piece that starts to come up like the middle of an O, put the backing down or the top, give it a little zhuzh, and then keep peeling. You want to make sure that all of your sticker stays down and none of it comes up with this top piece, okay? Now, if you're doing a very wordy sign, you may find it to be a little tricky, and I'm gonna probably tell you that you're gonna need a little patience. The wordier the design or the sign, the more tricky it is to get that top and that bottom piece off. But don't worry, with a little bit of patience and a little bit of grace on yourself, you'll be able to get it. It's just gonna take a little bit more time, okay? So I've got my sticker down, sticker stencil, see how I did that? And now I'm gonna take my backing and I'm gonna use this as my placemat. I'm gonna crease it in half, set it next to my workspace, and now we're gonna work on filling in the letters, okay? So this stencil is serving its purpose. It's gonna block off all of the pieces that we don't want painted and just do the letters of the design. So today I'm gonna go ahead and just go with a nice classic black. For a girl who owns a craft studio, I don't work in color a lot. I actually prefer to go with kind of those simple, classic neutrals, black and white. Those are timeless colors that you know are gonna go with anything in your home. So what you've seen me do is add a glob of paint to my work surface here. I probably start out with about a nickel to a quarter size. Then I'm gonna work with a white sponge. So these are white makeup sponges that you've either gotten with us in your kit, or you can find these at Target. They're just a makeup sponge. I'm gonna hold the biggest part in my hand, work with the smallest piece, and you're gonna see me dunk it into my paint, dab off the excess. That's the most important part, guys, okay? So it's dunk, dab, dab, dab. Then I'm gonna come up onto here and start filling in my letters. If I were to dunk into the paint and then go right onto the surface, all of that thick, goopy paint is going to kind of work its way under the sticker and squish and bleed out everywhere. That's one fast way to ruin your sign. So it's dunk, dab, 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 then come up here and start filling in. You'll see that I'm using like a bouncing technique. The reason why is because I want to use the least amount of paint possible, and I want to get in and get out quickly. I do not want to oversaturate my stencil or my board. So you certainly will not see me like swishing and like squishing the paint. We don't want to do that. And then when you're dabbing, you don't want to sit and like hold down that sponge. Again, we don't want the saturation of all of that paint going under there, okay? So it's just dunk, dab, 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 and then come in here and kind of bounce. I'm really thinking about a lot of 90s rap songs in my head right now. I don't know if you guys are as well, but it's really just get in, get out, and do this nice little bouncing technique so that you've got full coverage of your stencil without oversaturation of your paint, okay? That's kind of the ticket here. Now, I get a lot of people who will ask me, Jen, what happens if I cover all of my words with one coat of paint, but I feel like I need a second? That is a really good question. You can certainly go in and do a second coat. I would say if you are doing a dark board and a light letter, chances are you probably need a second coat. So if that's the case, you would go all the way down, working top to bottom, and then immediately go back up to the top and start that second coat right away. When you're working with a stencil, I always like to remind people you want to go semi-quickly. Now, I'm not telling you this to say, hurry up, go a lot faster. But what I am saying is that I wouldn't get to this point and then like walk away, go check dinner, take a potty break. The reason why is because if your acrylic paint starts to dry to your stencil or your sticker, once you pull that sticker off, guys, it's gonna pull off the lettering. So we never wanna wait for this to dry. We're just gonna get in, fill it in, and then we're gonna rip this stencil off, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna continue filling this in. Now, because I'm doing a light board and a dark letter, I can guarantee you I am only going to need 1 coat of paint. Just like so. Can you see that? Do you see how really that little amount of paint has done my entire sign, okay? Feeling pretty confident about this. I've got all of my spots filled in and figured out. Quick double check, because once this girl comes off, it's done. Okay, so now I'm not letting this dry. I'm ready to rip it off like a Band-Aid. So I'm gonna move this from my workstation, and then I'm gonna go ahead and start peeling. Same technique. Do you see how I'm teaching you guys this same thing over and over again? Once you get the same feel of this, you're gonna be able to do this no problem. So I'm just gonna take my stencil and I'm gonna start ripping it off. There's no rhyme or reason of how to rip it off. You're just gonna get it off of there, okay? Now, all of the stickers that you're seeing left behind, that, oh girl, that is supposed to be there. It means that all of that sticker did its job and it stayed behind. Now at this point, we're gonna need an X-Acto knife, which if you have an X-Acto knife, go ahead and use one. If not, you can use a pin. You could use a toothpick, anything sharp. Maybe you have sharp nails. That would do the trick as well. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and take your sharp blade. See, an X-Acto knife would do a lot better. Do I have an X-Acto knife around in a bucket? Maybe I do. What you're gonna do is you're gonna go ahead and start picking out these leftover stickers. Now, the good news is that these stickers did their job. So they were supposed to be left behind. And now we just need to take them out and get them out of here, okay? I also like to use an X-Acto knife because when I work with X-Acto knives, if you feel like there was a little bit of bleeding, you can take that X-Acto knife and you can go ahead and scrape the excess. So do you see on this L, let me see if you can get that. I have a little bit right on the tip of that L there, just a teeny tiny bit of bleeding. So I would take an X-Acto knife or something sharp and scrape away that little bit of excess. So if you feel like you've got too much paint and you're like, shoot, Jen, I got a little bit of bleeding on here. Don't worry, girl. Things are definitely fixable. I would take your X-Acto knife or your sharp edge and scratch away that leftover paint, okay? But because I use very little paint, thank you, Jesus, I don't have a lot of bleeding. And so now I'm gonna take my X-Acto knife and my sharp edge and continue picking these pieces out, okay? Once I've got all of these pieces out, you're gonna see this gorgeous sign has taken life and it's gonna be so beautiful. Now, this is a fun project that you can either do at home or you can pick up with us in studio. We do have a walk-in workshop where we do the projects like this the 2nd and 4th weekend of every month. So if you are local to Anoka, Minnesota, we would encourage you to come on in, try a walk-in workshop. It is fun to be able to find a space. Sometimes that's just it, right? You just need a space and a time to create and have these pieces for you. So hopefully you're doing this at home with a friend, or maybe you're at home in your jammies crafting. Either way, we love what crafts do for people. And look at that gorgeous sign. You guys, I think this turned out fantastic. Now this is gonna be gorgeous as is, or if you wanna add a frame to it, or this is something you picked up in studio and have a frame for, the frame is just really gonna elevate it, but I think that this turned out fantastic. So thanks for watching this video today. We are so excited that you joined us. You can check out our website as we have a craft crate, which is DIY to your door, that ships every month and it launches on the 15th. So if you want more information on that, check out our website. Thanks, guys.